Hey guys, what's up? It's Alex over at Laser Everything, and if you haven't been paying attention to the channel, it has been hell week here at the shop. Alas, here we are, it's Thursday, and I need to get a video out tomorrow so that I stick to my upload schedule. So, I'm taking advantage of this time pinch, and we're going to sit down at the computer, and I'm going to teach you everything there is to know about EZCAD in a basic sense. So this is EZCAD 101. Welcome. I'm going to walk you through what you're looking at, which buttons you should be clicking to get started, helpful little shortcuts, just enough to kind of push you through the front door and be able to walk around without tripping over yourself. So we're going to get into that right now, so stick around and I'm going to show you all the basics. It's going to be a great time. Here we go. Here we are on the desktop, and we're just going to open our 110 lens version of EZCAD. If you don't know how to set up versions of EZCAD, either for a brand new laser or for a new lens, there's a link to a video right up here. I'm going to throw a card up right now for you. Go ahead and watch that first. That'll do the very basic setup just to get things working. And then once things are working, come back here and check out the basics of EZCAD. But here we are, we're in EZCAD. There's a lot going on. So what are we looking at? Well, let's just go through the menus one by one and take a look around. Okay, so if we come up here first, it's a standard Windows menu tree. Okay, and there's a lot of stuff going on up here. Let's break it down. We've got a new file, open a file. This is like an EZCAD file. They're called .ezds. Okay. Save and save as, that's for saving EZD files, so that'll save a state of the program for you to open back up and continue working later. We have import a vector file and import a bitmap file. These two are very similar, but they do different things. So importing a vector is for importing a vector file like an AI or an SVG. I don't think that EZCAD supports EPS, which is a big bummer because that would be amazing. But that's for those kind of files. So if you have a vector file, you want to use import vector. If you try to import a photo using this, it won't work. For that, we need import bitmap file. This is for rasters like JPEGs and PNGs, which are the ones that I usually recommend. You can also save bitmap files. So if you want to import some kind of like raster file, a flattened raster file, you want to use this import bitmap function. Okay. Down here we've got the system parameter shortcut, and there's a few other things in here that we're not really going to cover. I don't use them very often, so we can approach these in like an intermediate video, but I don't want to overwhelm you right now. So let's just new, open, save, and import. Okay, those are the big things right now. If we come into edit, we've got a few basic controls, and once we get something on the screen, we'll take a look at those. Draw, we have some just Word versions of some of our tools over here, so we will cover those as well. Modify is for changing something that already exists on the screen, so we're not making something new, we're just making a change to something. And there's a few different things in here that we'll use today, though some of it gets a little advanced, so we're going to try to stay away from that. View, so view is for customizing your workspace. Usually I like to leave all of these on. I don't like not seeing things. So like we can turn the grid off there in view. We could turn off the ruler, right? So if you're missing anything or you lose a window, like let's say your system bar is gone and you're like, oh, where's my bar with all my shortcuts on it? Just check the view menu right here and just check what you want, and it'll come back for you. These are special plugins for EZCAD under the laser category. Different versions of EZCAD come with different plugins, so these aren't part of the base software. They're like add-on features. Depending on what version of EZCAD you're using and who built your machine, you're gonna have a few different versions of these plugins available to you. A big one is the rotary mark. That's for using a rotary tool. We're not going to cover that today. We actually have a video on that too. Link right up here. I'll throw the card up for you and a link in the description. And lastly, we have just our little about menu here, and there's some license information, and that's great. So What do we do? Well, the first thing that we can do is draw a shape, right? That's what you usually do in software tutorials like this. So let's go ahead and draw a circle. So here we are, we've got a little circle. And as soon as we draw our circle, we have some new options, some new things are appearing for us. Over here we have our position. So this is our position on the XY grid. So starting here in the center, we're at 0, 0. So if I move something to the left, the negative X number here is going to go up. And if I bring it down, we're going to see the negative Y value here is going to go up, or well, down rather. And same thing. So as we move it around the bed, you're going to see our coordinate position change. So if you need to move something exactly 5 millimeters to the right, you could go ahead and do negative 12 instead of negative 17. That's going to move that exactly 5 millimeters to the right. Next to that, we have our scale settings. So this is how big or small something is. If we go ahead and we change this from 30 millimeters to 40 and hit enter, it's going to make it 40 millimeters. If we want to just change, let's say, the X value, but we want the Y value to stay the same, this little lock is locking or unlocking the proportions. When it's locked, it's going to change both of these values together. So if I change this to 10, let's just say for a second, and we hit OK, and I change this value to 60, it's going to change them both, but it's going to change them proportionately, okay? If I unlock this, I can set either of these values to whatever I want, and it will not affect the other value. So that's kind of how you use the scale settings. The last thing that I will say is if we have something that's centered with something else, we want to make note of this reference position box. That's this little icon right here. Right now I have it set to the center. That's where I recommend you have it set. So if I have this set to the bottom left corner down here, and we scale this up, let's say we scale it up to like 100, right? It's going to scale up and to the right because we have it, the anchor, set to the bottom left corner. If we click in here and we set it to the middle, okay, and we try this again, we'll center it back up. So let's now set this to 100 again. You're going to see now it expands equally in all directions to meet the target size. So I like to keep it on center just because we're engravers and usually we're trying to keep things centered, right? So leaving that in the middle unless you specifically need it to expand from a different direction is usually a good idea. In order to really move on with this demonstration, we need to import some actual graphics. So let's go ahead and use our import vector tool here. And I'm just going to pull up a file. This is a file that I've been doing for my buddy over at customengravingplates.com. His name is Mark. He's an awesome guy. If you ever need any plates made custom for you to engrave, Mark is the guy to go to. So check out his website for sure. But we're just going to go ahead and ungroup. Now, that's something we haven't covered yet, so let's go ahead and talk about that. When we bring in a new vector file, it is going to come in as a group. So up here you can see it is labeled as a vector file. It's called finalf3.ai because that's the name of the file we imported. And when we do anything to this right now, it's going to do it to everything. And I'm sure that's not what you want. So what we want to do from here is we want to hit this button. It says ungroup. There is also a group button here, okay, and there's also combine. Combine's a little different. That's an intermediate function. We're just going to be using ungroup today. So if we go ahead and hit ungroup, it's going to break this file up into all of its individual curves, and you'll see down here we've got a bunch of different curves that make up our entire file. When we find something we want to move together, we can select all of it and we can group it. And then we're going to be able to move it around together, and it's also going to show up as a group in our list of items over here. Now, grouping can be really important, especially when we're talking about hatching things. Hatching is filling it in so that it can be engraved with a fill instead of just like a pen outline. If we don't group things like text, they won't hatch right. Grouping and hatching kind of go hand in hand, so you have to think about this. A great example I will show you right now. If we group all of our text, right, so let's get this all grouped too. So we have a group up here and we have a group down here. If I hatch these, it will do what we expect it to do. It fills the letters in. If I hatch these, it will do what I expect it to do, and it will fill the letters in. If I grab everything, including its outline box, and hatch it, it's going to fill it in, but not the way we expect it to. And it's because we didn't group these items together. So it's just filling it all as one big thing. Now let's try it again. We'll take all of that stuff that we had just looked at and we'll group it. And now let's hatch it and see how EZCAD treats it. So now you can see it's seeing it as one shape. So it's seeing these as the cutouts and it's filling the box. And that's because we grouped it. This is what we would want it to do in that situation. So you have to be careful what you're grouping and what you're not grouping, because if you group the wrong stuff, you're going to have hatching problems, and that's usually a good place to start. If you are experiencing hatching problems, you might want to check your groups. Here's another little handy feature for you. If you are trying to select something like this text, for example, and you keep selecting one of these lines, let's say the bottom line, we don't want it to move and we don't mean to select it, but we keep selecting it. We can actually grab just that line and we can hit this lock button, and it's going to lock that from any changes being made to it. So it's stuck there now. It's not going to let us move anything. We can select stuff all day, but it's going to sit right there. So now we can come in and we can actually grab just the stuff that we wanted to grab, and we can do whatever, hatch it, move it, delete it, and then we can come back down here and we can select the stuff that we locked and we can unlock it. You can either unlock all of it at once, so that's what we did here. So I have this selected and we can lock it again. So I can either unlock just one thing at a time, that's this one lock here, or we can unlock everything, and that's going to unlock all of our locked bits. Okay, so that's another handy little feature right there for you. Next up, just some basic transformation tools. Okay, we've got our mirror here, so if you ever need to flip anything around, you're engraving the back side of something, or you need something to be upside down, you've got your mirror tools right here. A couple last really basic things that I want to cover with you guys really quick. We have a basic undo and redo up here, so if you need to go back a step or forward a step, you can use them. If you use them too quickly, it can lock up EZCAD, so just be patient when you're using these. EZCAD takes a long time to load things in and unload things, so you just don't want to spam those. Use them with some tact and be careful, because you don't want to crash your program when you're in the middle of a job. Also, there's just some basic movement tools up here, so we can zoom window, and that is going to just give us a little magnifying glass so we can zoom. It's left click to zoom in and right click to zoom out, so fairly straightforward there. We also have this movement tool, so if you click it, you can just drag around the screen, which can be handy. We've got a manual zoom in and zoom out magnifying glass here, so very easy to use. We have a zoom all, so this will show us everything that is on the page. It's going to make it zoom in so that we can see everything. We also have zoom pick, so if we have something selected, we can click zoom pick and it's going to zoom in so that we can see the thing that we have selected. And finally, we have zoom page or view workspace, depending on your version of EZCAD, and if we click that, it's just going to center our workspace up in our view. So if you ever get lost and you're way out here and you have no idea where your stuff went, just go ahead and click view workspace, and that's going to bring you right back to where you were. We're almost done with basic transform and movement tools and just getting around to EZCAD. One of the things that I wanted to show you is if, let's say, we have this group of text here and we've got this group of text up here. So let's go ahead and group that, and let's get rid of everything else just so that we're not confusing ourselves here, because there's a lot on the screen. So this thing's over here, and this thing's up here. You may be asking, well, where are my centering tools? This isn't like Photoshop. Well, they're kind of hidden in a menu, and that sucks. So if we shift and click to select both, we can either modify, align, and then horizontal center, and that's going to center them along this horizontal line, or we can select them both and we can do modify, align, and vertical center. That will center them along the vertical line. There's a lot of other things you can do too. All of your basic alignment tools are here. So you've got left, right, top, and bottom, and just center. So one last example here. I don't know what this is. Let's get rid of that. One last example here. We can modify, align, center, and that's just going to align them over one another. The first one you select is the one that is moving. The second one you select is the one that it's moving to. So I'll show you again, modify, align, and center. and then the Z mark has moved to the made in the USA. So that's how you do your basic alignments right there. These other things we will kind of get into later if we have to. The transform is here if you want to use it. So this allows you to do basic things like translate, so you can move something a certain amount of distance. You can also use the rotate, so you can rotate a certain number of degrees. So we can do that there. We've got our reflection tool here. So this is just a more detailed version of our simple reflect up here, which will allow us to select a mirror and apply. We've got our scale, so this will change the size. And we have our shear, so this is kind of like making something italic, right? I will show you, we'll actually demonstrate the shear quickly for you. So here's our made in the USA. Say we don't have like an italic version of this font or something for some reason, we can shear it. That's called shearing. So that would be again in transform, and there's the shear right there. And we'll go ahead and just set a set number of degrees, like maybe 10 degrees, and hit apply. And that's going to just give us kind of that italic, right? Let's bump it up a little bit to exaggerate this a little bit more and hit apply. And there you go. So there's that shear is what we call that, okay? With all of this done, I think we're ready to move on. So this is if you had prepared artwork outside of, you know, your software of choice. What if you want to write some text? Well, we can do that. We have a text tool. It's right here. All you have to do is click, and it gives you a basic text box with your font. So don't worry too much about your font type. It tells you the type of font it is, so which like font like system it is using, and then it tells you how many options you have in each. The main one that you're going to be using is the TrueType font. That's just like Windows fonts. So there's that right there. You can select any font from the list, and then all you have to do is type in your text and hit apply, and it's going to appear right up there for you. Now some fonts aren't going to play nicely with EZCAD, and this is why I always recommend you simply just prepare your artwork in a separate vector editing program. Preferably something like Adobe Illustrator is going to be the most friendly with EZCAD, because this is not going to hatch well for reasons we're not going to get into in this episode. Overlapping things are not what we want. But some do. Some just come in just fine. So if we like apply this one, that would do very nicely. We don't have any open shapes. We don't have any overlapping shapes. So all of our paths look good. So this should be fine. Once this is in, we have a few different font features, stuff you're used to seeing in other programs, like your alignment, your bold and italic. We've got a character width. You can change the angle, the spacing. So there's a few different things in here. You can do circle text if you want to do circle text. You can actually change which direction the letters are going. All things to play around with. So if we leave this checked and hit apply, you can see it's actually going to put those in a big circle because our circle diameter is way too small there. So we can hit apply again, and if we hit OK and zoom out, now you can see that it's coming around the diameter, the circle with a diameter of the size of 100. So that's just we're zooming through because we've got so much to cover today. Play with it. That's the best way to learn, is just go ahead and play with it. But yes, you can type and edit fonts to a point inside EZCAD. That's how you do it. I'd also like to point out that you can click and drag. Okay, the other thing you can do is this is the middle mouse button, or the scroll wheel will allow you to drag around the screen. And then also we have our center key, so it's C on the keyboard. I always said Shift C for years. I thought it was Shift and C in order to get it to do that, and Shift and C does work. But apparently you can just hit C. Somebody told me about that recently. If you hit C, it'll just center it right to your workspace, which is really nice as well. So just some basic kind of quick shortcuts there for you on that. We've already covered so much. If you haven't already, I would pause the video, go take a quick break, and then come back And we'll jump into just like the second part of this, where we get into a little bit more advanced, like laser-centric features of EZCAD. So go take a break, be right back, and we'll continue where we left off, okay? Alright, I hope you enjoyed that break screen. Throwback to the old days of Monroe laser engraving. If you've ever watched the old laser everything videos before we were even laser everything, we're back and we've covered a lot of the basic features of just how to get around the software and, you know, what to do to produce something to engrave, right? There is one thing we forgot in the last section I wanted to show you really quick, and it's just the barcode tool. It's right here, 2 down from the text tool. So if we click that and we click, we can type a barcode similar to how we would type text. So if I just dump some numbers into this field right here, all we have to do now is hit apply, and it's going to give us the corresponding barcode. If I drop this down, we can change to any number of different types of barcodes, and once we have a type in, we can hit apply, and it's going to apply those changes and produce a new barcode for us, which is really nice. The other nice thing about the barcode feature is that they just hatch perfectly immediately the first time, so you never have to fuss with getting barcodes hatched when using the barcode tool. That works really, really well. So we have something we want to engrave. Okay, let's go ahead and get rid of one of these. We don't need both. We'll hit C on the keyboard to center this up. So if we mark this the way it is right now, it will mark the outlines of the letters. If we want to do any kind of fill whatsoever, we have to learn how to do hatching. And hatching is very easy. We're just going to grab our pointer tool right here, very simple, and we're going to select the thing that we want to fill. And we're going to, if it's text or a complex shape, group it. In fact, I just group everything before you hatch it. It's going to come out better. Not grouping things is a mistake. So go ahead and hit the group button, and then we're just going to hit hatch. And whoa, what is this? This is scary. Don't worry, we're going to walk through it. All of this stuff right here is the same stuff you're going to see in this little hatch menu down here on the side. So if we learn it here, we'll know it there. Okay, it's really easy. So you can have up to 3 hatches per shape or group or whatever, and every hatch that you add is a set of lines, and it's going to scan back and forth across those lines to fill the inside of a shape. So for each hatch, we have the following options. We have enable or disable, turns it on and off. All calc we'll talk about in an intermediate episode. Follow edge once, we'll follow the actual edge, so we'll go around the outside of the shape. And then cross hatch will automatically cross hatch the opposite direction. So in this example, we have a 45-degree angle, so it's going to hatch at a 45-degree angle across the shape. If I hit cross hatch, it's also going to hatch at a negative 45-degree angle across the shape after it's done with its initial run. Here we have our hatch types. There are many different hatch types that are good for many different things in many different situations. Of course, it's more complicated than we have time to talk about today. We're not going to get super into hatch types. I like the standard one is usually good for most things. In our Patreon parameter file, 90% of the settings just use the standard hatch, and it's fine. The second most popular one is the alternating. And then there's a few others in here like Aztec. We've got Snaky, the little snake boy. We've got the broken snake. So those are all different hatch types, and that is just basically dictating those lines that are filling the shape. How, in what direction, what pattern are we filling inside of that shape? So that's what those do there. Pen number, each pen allows us to have like a different hatch. So black might be a setting for a very dark mark on brass, and then we might set blue to a very light mark on brass, and it's going to let us hatch both of those things on the same file without having to load in a different file every time we want to run a new setting, especially if we're working on the same part. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. For now, we'll just leave this one at 0. So that's pens. Next, we have to talk about line spacing. This is how close your lines are in your hatch. How close are they to one another? The closer they are, the denser the energy is going to be packed because you're going to be engraving those lines very, very close together. There's going to be more heat, more ablation, right? If we have them super spread out, we're going to give the part more time to cool. The lines won't be as near to each other when we're marking them. So wide line distances are great for things like plastics, if we're trying to get away with doing plastics, or wood, things that are flammable or don't deal with heat very well. We want to use a wider line distance. Things that are really, really hard, like metals, like hard metal, steel, brass, things that are very reflective and take a lot of energy to ablate so that we're not reflecting all of the energy we're putting down, like silver or copper. We want a really tight line distance. We want those lines to stay nice and close together so we can actually get into the material. So there are a wide variety of line distances used for a ton of things, but we call this line distance right here 0.025 millimeters. That is, we call that the Laser Everything standard line distance. It's used on most of our settings. Most things deal well with this line distance, and they're close enough together that we resolve fine detail, but not so close that we're burning out the part. So this is a nice balanced setting for line space, and I recommend you start here when trying to find new settings for your machine and then expand from there. And of course, we have all this super sketchy stuff down here that looks like we should be skipping it today because gosh darn it, this is EZCAD 101 and I couldn't agree more. So let's not talk about it. Now here's hatch 2, and in hatch 2 I have my angle set to negative 45 degrees. You might be saying, well Alex, you could just check crosshatch. Wouldn't that do the same thing? Yes, it does. But I don't trust EZCAD very much, and if I can do something manually, I'm going to. So I leave crosshatch unchecked, and I come in here and actually I have hatch number 2 enabled. All of my settings are the same, and I run it at the opposite angle, so in this case negative 45. You could also opt to enable a third hatch if you wanted to at, like, say, angle 0. It's totally up to you. The options are there, and you can set these however you want. These are going to play a huge role, just as big a role as your speed and power when you are engraving an object. Your hatch settings are very important. So that is kind of an overview of the hatch. With that done, we'll hit OK, and EZCAD will hopefully hatch what we're asking it to, and there it is. So now you can see, if we scroll in, instead of getting just the outline, we are actually getting a hatch pattern. So now we can see the hatch pattern, and we can see exactly the lines that the laser is going to draw to go ahead and fill in our shapes. One thing that we want to just keep an eye on over here is we now have the option for mark contour. If we check that and apply, it's going to also add an outline edge back into our hatch so that we get a final outline. It looks great with some things and not so great with others, so you can mess around with that too. So with that, we're good to go. One final note on hatching, hatching specific warning. If I move this size, if I change the size of this engraving, and we'll go ahead and zoom to selected here. Let's see if I can find it up top. Zoom pick, there it is. So if I change the size of this, but I don't hit apply, the hatch changes size with the shape. So we took something really, really big that had, let's say, 1,000 hatch lines in it, and we made the whole shape smaller. It still has 1,000 hatch lines, but now those hatch lines are much, much smaller, so we're actually changing our line distance, and we don't want to do that. We want our normal line distance, the one that we picked. So if you ever resize a hatch shape, just remember, you resize a hatch shape, you have to reapply your hatch. The button's right over here, just like it was in the hatch menu up top. If we hit apply, you can see it's instantly going to rehatch our shape with updated line distance. Okay, so that's a really important thing. You have to remember to apply your hatch after you resize a hatched object. So that's just something for you to keep in mind. We're doing really great, guys. We're almost done. We just need to talk a little bit about our parameters. This is a massive topic, obviously. We can talk for days and days and days and days about parameters. But again, I'm just, I'm reminding you guys, this is EZCAD 101, and we want to keep it simple, stupid today, right? We're going to go after some KISS, some old school KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. So what are the basics of parameters? Well, the first thing is we need to, let's group some different lines of text. So we've got a group there, we're going to get a group here, and we're going to get a group here, right here, okay? Now we can go ahead and hatch these. If I click this and hatch it, and we can click this one and hatch it too. These two have both been hatched black. We can also come in and we can hit hatch, and we can change our pen number to 1. We just talked about this because we just went over hatch settings, right? So if I change this to 1, this one's actually going to hatch blue, all right? And we've used our second hatch. Our hatches can be seen over here. Now, in order to change the settings for any of our different hatches, we want to uncheck this box, use default. And now all of our options for our laser show up. Now we can't just like click blue up here and start editing things and hope that they stick. So let's actually type something real into there, like 100, and I hit enter. It's not actually going to change what is going on. So what we need to do is we need to select it from the grid down here. So if we want to change this number 1 hatch and make it something other than default, we want to select this blue swatch first. Make sure you click that, and then we can uncheck use default param and grab something, let's say from our library, and now it's going to show up. You see our parameter name there? So that's how we know that it's actually applied it to that color. So we can see the parameter name right there. So now we've applied that. So now if we want to apply one to black, we have to click black in the swatch. It's going to highlight it. And now we can come in and we can like change our settings down here. And now this is, it still reads default because we're changing the default param, but it will work. So I'll just, to prove my point, we can pick another different one like Steel General. And now you can see black is Steel General. And you can do this with all these different pens. You've got a ton of different colored pens in here, and you can do a big file with 1,000,000 different hatch colors, and it's going to be very interesting. But it's there. That's a tool. It's available to you. So that's how you use pens. You can also change pens after the fact. So remember we hatched this one black? Well, we can actually come in here and we can change this to pen number 2. On hatch 1 and hit apply, and then we can come down to hatch 2 and we can change that to pen 2 and hit apply, and now we've got ourselves a regular old number 2 hatch here. So that's really exciting. So yes, you can absolutely change the hatch pen after hatching it initially. You don't have to do it when assigning the hatch with the hatch button. So that is that. That looks pretty good. And the last thing that we're going to talk about today is our parameter management, right? So let's talk about just some basic parameter settings. If we wanted to edit, let's edit this hatch pen number 2 because we haven't edited pen number 2 yet. Uncheck use default, and we've got this loop count here. That's how many times it's going to run this pen during the cycle. So if I hit 5 and the other two are set to 1, it's going to run 1 pass of the Steel General, 1 pass of the brass black, and then it's going to run 5 passes of this default pen number 2. There are some differences between how this and the total number of marks work down here at the bottom, and that's of course for another video, but that's what this does. So that's a very basic view of what this does. We have our speed, that's how fast our beam is moving across the material. Our power, that's how hard we're hitting it, how much energy are we sending downrange. And our frequency, which is how fast the laser is pulsing, because we use pulsing lasers. So the higher the frequency, the faster our laser is pulsing, which means it's a little bit gentler when it's hitting our part. These 3 things are what are going to determine the type of marking we're going to get in conjunction with the hatch settings that we assigned our hatch earlier. It's a lot of moving parts. Nobody said this stuff was simple, guys. I'm trying to keep it simple for you today. And that is why we're going to skip our laser timing controls down here. These change how long it takes for the laser to turn on and off when it's moving from, like, for example, in this document here, when it moves from the S to the T in stainless, how fast or slow is the laser turning off when it's jumping between letters. It's a whole nother world. It's a whole nother thing that you have to dial in on your lasers, and it's a bit of an advanced subject. So skipping it because 101 day, right? 101 day. There is one thing that is advanced that we're going to talk about, and I'm not going to explain why. I'm just going to tell you to do it. Everybody should jump into this advanced button for every new setting you create and set your min jump delay and your max jump delay to 500. Don't ask me why, just do it. Promise you, you won't regret it. It's going to make your engravings come out better. You can tweak it later when you have a little bit more understanding of what you're doing. But set your min and max jump delay to 500. Do yourself a favor. You're going to get better marks. So definitely check that out. And last but not least, we've got our param name in here, so we can name our parameter. We can also, if we hit select param from library, so let's come up with some cool setting, right? This is our awesome setting that we really love. We've got, like, you know, some crazy numbers in here, and this is just the perfect setting. So we can come into select param from library, and we can hit save current param as and give it a name, the perfect setting. All right, and we'll hit OK, and now it's going to show up at the very bottom of our list right there, the perfect setting. If it helps you, you can sort this list by name. So we can come in here, and then there's the perfect setting at the bottom because everything else has an F in front of it. So there it is. And if you ever want to load this setting in the future, all we have to do is, let's say we want to add the perfect setting to our black pen. We just click black, and then we select param from library, and we just have to find the perfect setting. There it is, and we hit OK. And there we go. It's all loaded up and ready to go. One thing I do want to warn you about is if you hit this apply to default button, what this is going to do is it's actually going to override whatever your default is. So when you make a new pen and this is checked, use default param, that is the parameter that it's going to be using. It's okay to use this feature if you know that you're doing it and you're doing it on purpose, but just be careful because it will be the default setting for every pen until you assign the pen a custom setting. So that's what that button does right there, and there's another, of course, shortcut to that dangerous function right down here at the bottom, just in case you didn't mess up and click it while you were up here. Also, just a quick note, you can delete parameters with the button right there, delete param. So that's basic. We have a lot of settings in here. These settings came from the Patreon, so if you are new and this is your first video, or maybe you've watched a couple and you're just getting started, I actually offer instant access to my entire fiber laser and CO2 laser libraries to patrons who support the channel and our community and the podcast, and it's a really easy way to get set up super fast. I'm going to show you how to import those settings onto your system, and we're going to go take a look at those right now. So here's our Patreon page. I can't believe we're almost to $2,000 per month from 252 awesome people who really support what we're doing here. That feels so good. But what we need to do is actually view the Patreon page as if we were a patron. And what we're going to do here is we're going to click on our we've got little links down here that break down the different types of posts. So we've got podcast bonus episodes, special fonts, we've got exclusive live stream episodes down here, posts on setting up laser businesses, and a lot more. But what we're after is this fiber laser one right here, fiber laser. That's what we want. And we'll click that. We've got some focal stick templates, and there it is. Here it is, our giant list of parameters. These are actually outdated. I went through and refinished the whole list to make it super nice. But if we scroll down, we've got some instructions here, and then there's a couple files. So we have the Excel file, which is really cool. I'm not going to show you this right now, but it's easy enough to download and check out. The Excel file actually comes with a power converter, so if you have a different lens than me, or you have a different wattage system, you can download this Excel file and plug in your lens and wattage of your machine, and it will convert my settings for you automatically. But if you happen to be using the same wattage and lens, you can come right down here and download this zip file, and we'll go ahead and give that a click real quick. And we can close our web browser now, and let's open up our downloads folder and grab that out. So there it is, and we'll just drop that on the desktop. And the first thing we want to do is extract it. So we'll extract. And in order to do this, you need to know where EZCAD is installed. Alright, so I know that I keep mine on Drive so that I can use it across multiple computers. So if we come into Drive here, here's my EZCAD 110 folder. It's right there. We can go ahead and open it up. And we're looking for the param folder. There it is. Now you'll notice the param folder is what was in what we downloaded. if we open this up, we can actually copy and paste these parameter files into our version of EZCAD. If you have settings already developed and you don't want them overwritten, make sure that you back them up somewhere so you can actually cut these out and paste them somewhere else, just like this. And then you can copy these out of the folder that you downloaded and paste them in. And when you load up EZCAD, and we'll load it up, you're going to have a huge list of parameters that are going to get you started on your laser journey. Unfortunately, you can't combine files, so if you already have settings saved, either write them down so that once you import my files, you can add yours back into that list, or the other way you could do it is you can load my files in, write down the settings, or just check the Excel file at that point and add them to your library. So if you've already got a really big library, just download the Excel version and copy the settings that you want from my folder into your existing library, because that'll be the easy way to do it. But just the thing that I want to point out is dragging these files into this folder will overwrite what's already in here. So don't do that if you don't want to lose the settings that you've been working on, because that's what will happen if you overwrite the files of mine. So just plan and you'll be fine. Either back your settings up first, write them down, put them in an Excel spreadsheet, whatever you want to do, then dump my files in, and then if you only have a couple, you can just add your settings that you've developed on top of that. You're going to have a giant library that's going to give you a great head start. You're going to have the wind at your back for starting your laser journey. So I just wanted to share how to drop those files in if that's how you want to do it. Though honestly, it's been changing so much these days. Not only do you get the entire fiber laser and CO2 laser parameter library when you support the Patreon, but you also get monthly updates on those files. So any cool settings that we find during our Patreon live streams or during normal episodes of the show are automatically added into these downloadable files, whether it's the Excel spreadsheet or the EZCAD library version, and they get updated every single month. So every month you stay as a patron, you get a new list of parameters with all of the updated stuff from all of the episodes that we've done, all of the experimentation that we've done, things that we've curated from the Discord server. So it comes from everywhere, and you get that compact, tight list every single month. It's going to look really good, and it's really going to help you out. So not to get too off topic here, I think we covered what we came here to talk about. I just wanted to kind of plug that at the end because it can be a really great resource for you, and it's definitely relevant today to today's episode. So I just wanted to touch base on that. But yeah, I mean, that's it. We're just we'll jump back into EZCAD really quick, make sure that we didn't miss anything super important. I don't see anything super important. If you do have something hatched, if you're on EZCAD 3, most of this will apply to you if you're on EZCAD 3, but if you have something hatched, you're also going to have the ability to save hatch parameters, like you have the ability to save normal parameters. So over here, you'll have select param from library. If you're on EZCAD 3, you'll have select hatch from library, which is super nice for you, and it works the same exact way as what I showed you over here. But honestly, that's it. This was a massive amount of information for you guys. I know that probably felt immensely overwhelming. Just breathe and head back to the beginning and watch it one more time, because it really can be just like a lot to learn. The learning curve for fiber lasers and Galvo EZCAD lasers in general is very steep. It throws a lot at you at once, but I promise, just work with it, practice, use it. Doesn't matter if stuff isn't coming out right, just stick with it. It will get better. You will learn the software. It's not that bad once you get used to it. It takes about 3 to 4 weeks of just like constantly playing with it, and you're going to start to feel really confident in knowing what all of these different functions and features do. So thank you so much for watching EZCAD 101. Seriously, I'm really glad that you're new and you're here. It's been so great to have you by, and we're going to be working on EZCAD 102. That'll be the next thing with some intermediate stuff in it, if you want to check that out. One last card for you. I'm going to throw the card to artwork for laser engravers up into the corner. So if you want to learn how to do artwork that will work well in EZCAD, this video will be a great video to get you started, so definitely check that out as well. well. If you got value out of this video, don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. Let other people know that the content is good. It really is like so important for engagement. And leave me a comment in the comments area if you have a question. For a lot of questions, I will refer people to the Discord, which is something you should check out. There's a link in the description. It's our awesome laser community, filled with people who love everything that has anything to do with lasers, and a lot of problems are easier to diagnose there because we can chat on voice chat, or you can share photos or video clips of the problems you're having, and having that visual component makes it much easier to diagnose problems than we can do it on the YouTube's comment section. So if I refer you to the Discord, that's why. And while you're down there checking out the link to the Discord, don't forget to smash that button to the link over to the Patreon to support the channel. If you guys are enjoying this and you're getting value out of this right now, it's because patrons support our channel. Having a Patreon supported channel is just so amazing because you guys get to be my #1 priority. There's no laser company that's paying me to tell me what to say. You know, nobody has any kind of like leverage on me. I'm only beholden to the viewer, and I owe it all to you guys. So if you want to be part of that elite group, hit the link to the Patreon and go sign up right now. You get instant access to my entire fiber laser and CO2 laser libraries like we just saw, plus access to a ton of other exclusive content, including darn near daily live streams, and don't forget also bonus episodes of the brand new Laser Source podcast and a ton of other stuff too. I mean, we're not even scratching the surface, so go sign up for the Patreon, seriously. That's all I've got, guys. I hope you found this video helpful. Thank you so much again one last time for watching, every single one of you, patron or not. I appreciate all of you guys, and I hope you reach out to me and say hi on the Discord, and I'll see you in the next one.